didn't really live that moment, I would say, with that medal for a long time. Like I just really did. It was short lived. The happiness of that, because and I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's just that's what it was. Life changed real quick, and.
This is the Gold Medal Mindset, where we bring you all things winning in business, sport, and life. I'm Dr. Jason Richardson, pro BMX world champion and Pan Am Games gold medalist. Now I'm a professional speaker, author, and winning mindset coach. Thanks for joining in. Get ready to mine for gold as we challenge your perception to change your results. Guess what, gang? We are back. Another fine episode of the Gold Medal Mindset podcast. And as you know what I'm about to say, I am super excited to have this guest on, current world champion and also a silver medalist at the Rio Olympics, Miss Alise Post. How are you?
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. Just back from another weekend of racing and getting settled back in. Good to be here chatting with you.
Did you win again? I think you did. I think I was following it.
Yeah. I made it through the mud pits and won the weekend's event, event.
Real quick, fill me in. Sorry for the audience who's listening, but I only saw bits and pieces because it's been a crazy weekend for me.
Yeah.
But it did rain there. So was there a rain delay? Normally you race twice, but you only raced once this weekend. How did they do?
Yeah. So normally for a standard national event, like this, where we have a bigger money payout and points for our year-end series. It's a 2-day event, and we race off of a big 3-story start hill, drop in, and that's kind of the, I guess, pro show, if you want to call it, and that's for our year-end title. And then this weekend in Louisville, a race we go to every year over Labor Day, that seems to rain almost every year over Labor Day. It poured, and the Hurricane Harvey aftermath, I guess, kind of made its way up to Louisville. And I have a hard time complaining because obviously there's much bigger problems than what was happening at our BMX race in the world. But it did kind of stink. We did have the first day completely canceled. They got at least 5 inches of rain that day. It just never stopped raining. Yeah. And there was no chance. So they canceled the whole event, amateur, pro, everything. And so normally we race Friday, Saturday. So then we were trying to figure out with them how we could run 2 events in one day, or if we could stay Sunday, but so many people fly out right away Sunday morning or whatever with the pros. So they ended up just running the one event, and it was pretty rutted up, muddy kind of racing at the start. And by the end, it was going better because it didn't rain really all day Saturday. So it was pretty good by the end, and I think Sunday it was even better, but we did not compete that day. So just one shot. Did they double the points and double the money? Did they count it as 2? They didn't. They did not. That's old fashioned apparently.
Well,
so they just did
I'm aging
one event.
myself.
Yeah. They it's apparently like a rule with it's a UCI sanctioned event, and
okay.
So you don't run 2 in a day, but. With that said, they were also trying to be fair to people that were already booked out Sunday and all that stuff to try to run it 2 days, blah, blah, blah. So they're actually going to run an extra event at our next race, which is in Reno, Nevada. It's an indoor, so it should be good.
So it's going to essentially be a 3-day event for you in Reno.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how they're going to do it. I think hopefully they take into account the people that, spent the money, registered, and went to Louisville. And I'm thinking they should probably only let the people who were ready to race and there in Louisville do it.
Look at you. Just such a competitor. But yeah, and just, right? Because what you're saying is essentially, it's like, look, we committed to go into this race. I think the people who committed to go into that race should be eligible to have the remake and, not have a bunch of people show up like, let me race 3 days. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, just instead of like handing out another race to everybody, just say, hey, we're not going to refund you, but we'll let you have an extra day here because, it's not even necessarily for me in that scheme of things, but, people who are trying to plan their events accordingly and are on more limited budgets. Yeah.
So check it out. We've known each other quite a bit, kinda. And the first time we met, the first time I've spoken to you, do you remember the first time we spoke? You probably don't.
I was probably a little kid.
You were a little kid. You were a little kid. And I believe
Yeah.
it was 2007, and it was at Louisville. And you were walking around. You were walking around with a camera and a
Oh, yeah,
microphone.
yeah. Yep, I do remember this.
'Cause you were
I didn't
doing
know that was the first time we spoke, though.
That was the first time I think I had a conversation with you. Yeah, and I was wearing a neck brace, and then you were walking the pits. Or actually, it was like practice. We were behind the hill, and you were asking me about the neck brace, and I forget, it was like ISTV or some kind of web TV based thing way back in 2007. Anyways, that's the first time we had a conversation. And
I hope it went well. I do remember doing that, though.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Of course,
Yeah.
you always handle yourself well. So, obviously, I'd known you from racing, and probably spoken to your parents long.
Yeah, I
long
would have
before
been.
that.
What would I have been? I would have been 16.
Yeah.
I think.
You were young.
Yeah,
You were young.
and for whatever reason, I think our racing there wasn't enough girls or something come up. I don't know what it was, and I went around the pits and did those interviews with people for that station, which was pretty cool. So
That's that.
yeah,
So, and then a year later, our sports in the Olympics, 2008. You were too young, but then in London. You went to the Olympics in London, but I want to go back even further before that. We also have something else in common other than the sport, and that would be the University of San Diego, where I graduated, got my undergrad degree in philosophy, and that was really useful. And you started there, and I'm hoping that I know that you put things on hold to live the Olympic dream, and boy, we'll get into that. But that's the other thing we have in common. So you came out to San Diego for school and obviously BMX.
Yeah.
So tell me.
So I obviously was too young for the '08 games. So I graduated high school in 2009, and I guess pretty much since I turned pro, which I was 15, I was 2006. I was kind of on the radar for USA Cycling, who based out in San Diego area, obviously. With the Olympic training site there. And so they kind of always said to me, when it's time, you've got a spot out here, you should come out. And I was from Minnesota, so it wasn't the best for winter racing. I never really did ride all year round. I did my gymnastics and other sports and stuff in the winter, and I went to the track once in a while, but it was more of a summer thing for me. And and I still had quite a bit of success. So they were like, hey, let's get you out here and riding year round, et cetera, et cetera.
So stop. I'm not going to let you get away with that. I feel like quite a bit of success or a little bit of success, however you put it, you're being modest, but I feel like you're like glazing over. You've had some amateur national titles, haven't you?
Yeah. So I guess my whole thing, I started racing when I was 6, at the hands of my brother. I have 2 older brothers, and they, I guess, just kind of chasing them around in their footsteps, etc. Like just being a little girl, a little tomboy, and very competitive since day one. I was already into dance, gymnastics, all that stuff. So my brother wanted me to do something with him that wasn't as girly per se, and so yeah, I got involved in the sport, and I did pretty good at the local Minnesota races. I think my first actual, they always had a national in Minnesota, and so I started in '97, and in '98 at the Minnesota National, I think I got my first signature. It was this guy named Big Daddy Eric Roop, who's still in the sport, and it's kind of funny how full circle it's come. Now I see him; he's racing amateur again, kind of just enjoying the race scene and all that. But he was in the prime of his career then, and yeah, it's just kind of funny to look back on that and just see how far we've come. And I was just that little kid asking for autographs and doing my thing. Back at the one race a year, we got to see the pros. But yeah, and then in '98, I also went to the Grand Nationals, which is our kind of year-end season finale, and every year. And I started kind of going down there with Minnesota families and made the finals and stuff. But it wasn't until I was 9, I went to a couple out-of-state ones. in the Midwest area. And we were in Raytown, Missouri at a race when I was 9. And our entire van and trailer, everyone used to, pack up with the family in the van and take the trailer. Everything got stolen out of the parking lot one night. Like the whole van. Yeah. So we didn't have anything. No bikes, no gear, no nothing. We were just in Raytown, Missouri, trying to find rides home to Minnesota after the race,
Jeez.
and we ended up, there was a bike for sale on the fence, and my mom bought it. Was like $90 or something. My mom bought me a bike on the fence, and I was pretty small, little gymnast, and so this little 4-year-old boy from Minnesota that we knew, I could wear all his gear, like it fit me. So but he had clip shoes. I'd never raced in clips. So I did that, clipped into my pedals for the first time, and ended up winning both days on this makeshift setup on these clip pedals.
Nice.
And, yeah, and that would have been my like second and third national wins, because I think I got my first national win in Rockford earlier that summer in Illinois by default of the girl in front of me slipping her pedal. And I went by her and got my first win.
Hey, you got the W. You got the W.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about that. So that people, because and in our sport, or any sport really, there is this thing like when somebody else's messes up and you end up winning, they kind of say, "Oh, I got lucky," or "You got lucky." But if you really think about it, right? They slipped a pedal, which was their mistake. And so ultimately,
you just didn't make a mistake.
That's right.
Yeah.
You didn't. You in theory, you rode better. Hence, that's why you ended up front. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So so I won that one on flat pedals, and then went to this race and ended up having to race on clip pedals, and it worked out good. So that was that shift kind of happening for me as a 9-year-old girl. And I won a couple more races that year. Went in with my series points for the year end and won my first like age group national championship deal when I was 9. And then people kind of were, hinting up to my parents, hey, if you go to like the big events, you go out to California, you chase down, where the big names are, I think Alise will do pretty good. She's pretty quick. She's good. And obviously I'd won the Grand Nationals when I was 9. So they're like, if you go to these big races, she could win the overall, not just her age group. So my parents gave me, 1 year when I was 10. They're like, all right, we're going to spend the money and go to these races.
Year.
Yeah. 2001 is the year.
Wow.
So that's when it happened. And my parents basically said, hey, we'll fund you. We didn't have a ton of money or anything. They just said, hey, we'll take the time off work, pay for you to go out to XYZ races that are meant to be the big ones. And if you can get yourself a sponsor, that'll help out. In the years to come, you can keep doing the nationals and stuff around the country. But, if not, might step back a little bit and just keep doing the local scene more so regional, And I was like, okay. I ended up winning pretty much everything. Won the overall number 1 thing for the amateur girls. And I ended up getting 4 of those between the 2 different bikes I raced as an amateur. And so when I turned 15, which was the minimum age for a professional back then, I turned pro pretty much right away because I was bored kind of and wanted the challenge. I was just ready for the next challenge, and so I ended up racing professionally, but it wasn't really in the thinking about the Olympics or anything at that point, because it was only announced right around that time that it would even be in the Olympics. So I just did it because, I was looking for the next challenge. I was in other sports. I was doing my other thing. And I ended up getting podiums my first weekend in pro, and ended up winning probably my 3rd race in pro, and winning the number 1 pro title that first year that I was pro. So I guess it kind of just went from there, where I was on the radar for USA Cycling.
So basically, folks, what she's saying is, since I was 9, I was a badass and won most everything. And then I turned pro, and I ended up winning the pro title that year at 15, and really, so. I guess I was on the. I love how modest you are, though. This is the appeal. This is the brilliance of it, which is probably one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, because anyways, I'm not even gonna get into our story. That story, I'll save that. But this is the brilliance of it, because it's like you've had Right. So even before the Olympics, right, you're already the national number one pro of the nation of the United States, which, as I recall, is the biggest country that does this sport. Right. And you're just like, yeah, I had a bit of success. I guess that kind of put me on the radar. It's like, no, it's a lot of success, and you're of like, it's a no brainer. Like, radar is not the point. Like, you're kind of setting the benchmark, so to speak. So it brings you, but you still have high school, right? You're 15, you're a pro. You still have high school, right? So you end up coming out here. I was really excited. I think you probably remember that. I was super excited that you went to USD because you were like the only other person to ride our sport and go to my school. But then I also noticed.
It just kind of worked out going there because obviously coming from out of state, I was looking at schools in the area because obviously, like I said, they kind of offered me, hey, you can come train at the training center if you need a room, whatever you need out here, we'll get you sorted to kind of get on your feet out here. And so I looked at schools in San Diego basically based on, hey, I can do this BMX thing out here. And it is expensive coming from another state, no matter what school you go to.
Yeah, out-of-state tuition's no joke.
Yeah, exactly. So then I was like, I guess it doesn't really matter whether I look private or public or what. They're all similar priced. And USD was actually really good. They ended up giving me a decent grant based on, high school grades and all that kind of stuff on top of doing the sports stuff. So it made it more affordable to do. And obviously it's not a bad campus and spot to be. So I did that and made some good friends. And I don't regret doing that. That was good. It was a lot because it wasn't a school sport like so it was a lot to fit in.
Right, it was, and that's when, honestly, from when I had been in, because I went to school throughout my whole career, but that I think the sport had changed, obviously, like especially after the first Olympic cycle, you definitely were on, more than the radar. It was pretty much like, you and who else would be on the Olympic team in London. That was you might not have been thinking that, but that's essentially what it was. So I remember there was a group of students from USD kind of having signs and stuff when they had the World Cup in San Diego at Chula Vista at the training center. So that was kind of cool. But then, like, gearing up for London, you obviously put school on hold for a little bit, like many Olympic athletes do. And we went to London. That was your first Olympic experience. But people listening already know you have a silver medal, and if they can't say if they're just tuning in. This isn't radio, but if they're catching it, you have a silver medal from Rio. So 4 years prior, we're in London. So I'd like to have a little conversation about, I guess, your growth from there. Like, obviously physically and as an athlete, but just in general, what was that like for you? Just kind of going into London and then going into Rio.
Yeah. I think that it's one of those things. So going into London, like you said, I to put school on hold. I got my first BMX coach when it was 2010. Yeah. And, different mindset. You need to put I'd always grown up with, can have it all kind of. I was doing gymnastics, track, BMX, school, it was working out. But you get to that top tier and you start having to make a few more choices, and prioritize a little bit because everybody's battling for that same 2%,
Yep.
And I guess, making a choice and taking a little break from school was hard enough. But then, I had a major knee injury and hamstring injury before the London Olympics.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so that was 3 or 4 days before the World Championships in 2011. Mm-hmm. And I would say I was just kind of starting to come into my own after having had some coaching and stuff. I guess I'm just getting better on my bike and, just more competitive on the international ranks, I would say. In 2010, I made a few podiums and stuff and kind of improved on the international scene, per se. And then I kind of had, for lack of a better term, legs chopped from under me at kind of a critical moment there, right when the Olympic points chase was starting for London. Because, all these years, it's awesome that you do well, but really comes down to, these 10 months or whatever you want to look at, this year of time to qualify your spot. And I I mean, I got hurt right when that was starting, and they told me that I was going to be out. I mean, probably a year, but minimum 9 months,
The
and
doctors
that,
told you this.
yeah, because it wasn't just like I had a torn LCL, which is pretty rare. It's an open knee surgery, not like an ACL or PCL, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It's a more rare one. So I got a big old scar down the side of my leg from that surgery, and it's an LCL. But I also not only ruptured that, but I ruptured my hamstring tendon. So I was going to compete if it was just the knee, but I actually tore the whole hamstring tendon and ripped my uh, top of my fibula off the bone, and like it was just a lot going on in
Damn.
there.
How? When did that?
Yeah,
Where? What did you? What did you do? I don't remember. I don't remember the
yeah.
wreck. I
I
mean, I
went
remember you were
over.
injured.
Yeah, I went over my handlebars and just like the force of the bike coming over my head and slamming down, my foot was still clipped into the pedal
Oh,
and it
okay.
twisted my leg. And yeah, so basically, yeah, I thought I was going to race, and I find out the guy's like, yeah, you can try to go race with a brace on and get your points, but you're not going to have much power without using your hamstring. So I was like, okay, well, I guess surgery it is. And originally it was going to be like, oh, two surgeries, this, that, and the other thing, because it was pretty intensive surgery, I guess. And then I went to Colorado, got best knee guy in the country probably over at the Stedman Clinic,
Yep.
Dr. LePron. And he did it all at once. He told me he was willing to push the boundaries with me. A normal, any knee surgery, looking at probably at least, on a bike, you get a little leeway because you're not a cutting sport.
Right.
But maybe 6 months minimum most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with under his care and the training center and just working hard with all that, I ended up getting cleared, and I went down to Australia and just put my hat on, to work hard hat here, and I ended up doing five. I got cleared in 5 months, like to the T.
So 5 months to the T. So then you head down to Australia, which is where your coach resides.
Yes, exactly. And I skipped out on all the camps and stuff back here in the US. I mean, I was off the radar because very first event that, counted for points, the two other American girls, what, 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that never happened before. Nobody had ever won anything. So it was like, okay, well, I got my work cut out for me. Not only do I only have not even half of the points chase time to get these scores in, but I got to have the best season of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put my head down and went down to Australia for about a month and got a base in, started racing again, had a big knee brace on, did the whole thing. And I ended up doing all right. I got a couple podiums. I won my first World Cup, went to the Worlds, was leading the Worlds that year in 2012, which was in May, and crashed. So I ended up not winning the overall points. If I would have won that race, I would have just guaranteed myself a spot. But on the back end of that, I did ride really well, had a lot of success leading into it. So I did pretty much have the clear second pick.
You had
to
the coach's
team.
pick. So that's an interesting story. So in Birmingham, I was working with Ariel, who's been on the show, and I remember it was really tight it was really close between all of the women. I mean, well, all of them, but it was good. Like 4 of you had a shot at getting.
Yeah.
And I remember, and obviously we were watching you, not like wishing bad, but just like,
Dang it, yeah, because I think the lone American in the final,
right?
maybe somebody.
Yeah.
Anyways,
It
and
got
like
weird,
how it
yeah.
worked out, I was lane 1, ready to go, or 2, 1 or 2, I don't know, on the inside, ready to go, and riding really well, and just come off that win in Papendal, which was the Olympic replica track,
Yep.
and that was my first World Cup win. So, and Ariel had a tough little spout there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she would have been a little nervous probably watching that.
No, it came down to that night. I remember, and it was just like, and there was a lot of, and because so in the World Championships in our sport that is like the final qualifying round for not even just the U.S. for some of the for the women in the U.S., but for a lot of countries. So we were watching just kind of a lot of people, they were. It was almost like pinballs. Just some people were just going down left and right, just nerves or whatever. And it was a tight track indoor. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
Crazy.
Ariel, I think Ariel ended up getting the spot, the guaranteed spot. She did make that main and get fourth, and then
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She did. Yeah.
you got the coach's pick. Anyways, and the drama, as you know, kept ensuing going on into the games. But heading into the games, how were you feeling in like once you actually you were on the, the plane landed,
Yeah.
and got there?
I think that it was kind of one of those things like, okay, you get, like you kind of said, I'd had a lot of success young. I'm coming off the best year I'd had in international. I just got off of winning the World Cup on the Olympic replica trap per se, leading the world's finals. And, a couple months later, we're showing up to the Olympic Games. And I'm riding obviously better than I had ever, right? Mm-hmm. So there's obviously pressure and thoughts that kind of come along with that into your first Olympic Games. And granted, it was the first Olympics for a lot of the people competing there. But I think that after you just kind of come to expect certain things of yourself. And I think that after having such success for so long and kind of riding a high coming in, I don't know. Yeah, you just expect, like, there was no reason in my head why, I didn't have a 1 on my plate going into that race by any means. I had an 8 from crashing, mm-hmm. but I felt that I was in that position,
Right.
That I was one of those riders that was definite contender. And I think that I just crumbled. I really did. I really crumbled at that Olympics. I mean, you go in and I think one of the hardest things is they prep you for all this. They're like, okay, this is what it's going to be like, and this is what you're going to have to ignore. And like, I think sometimes it would be almost just better to just go in blind, enjoy the moment, and just take it in stride. Because in saying treat it like every other race repetitively makes you think it's not like every other race. You know what I mean?
Well, and the truth is, time that goes into it. The truth is, it's not like every other race. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in the scheme of things, and you realize that maybe a year out or 2 years out. But the truth is, you're very aware as a human that you're at the Olympics, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people that would never been on, that stage before.
Right.
And, you got, what was it, David Beckham and the Queen and all these people at this event. You're like, oh my God. And just like the sheer numbers of people in London, the atmosphere at that event was amazing.
I will tell you what, it was funny because I was in the coaches area behind the hill, but I wanted to come watch the actual first rounds, in the stands. And I could not believe, and I could only imagine how it would have felt. Like, it's one thing to be at the World Championships and have maybe like 10, 20, 30,000 people there. But the Olympics was crazy. And it gets quiet, but then between the announcing of each name, like, how did it feel on top of the hill? Because like the bass from
it was
sound system was like
shaking, you're vibrating. Yeah, it was really cool, definitely. But like, your adrenaline was going. It's kind of like this first time I went to Paris was my first World Championships when I was 14, I think it was, mm-hmm. and they just sit there and they make it go quiet and they just play a heartbeat. Right. And you're sitting in the gate and it's like you're feeling your own heartbeat go with this heartbeat. It's like, it's so quiet. And it's just like you're alone with your thoughts, but then it's so loud at the same time and the pressure is just building. It was really like that there too. It was just like the bass and the atmosphere, and even leading into our competition day, like, cause we were at the very end, like you could hear, like, the whole village was so close there. Like, you're hearing every venue, the track and field stadium wasn't far either. You're hearing everything erupt every 20 minutes from the British persons as well. Like the whole event, even just sitting in the village in between stuff, I mean, it was just amazing. It was great. They did a really good job with that Olympics. But I mean, you feed on that energy for sure. Like, it's exciting, but you start feeling like, yeah, this is a big race. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're there. You're there. You're a hard worker and you like to do things right. That's one thing I do know about you. So you're there and you're thinking, okay, and you're doing what's best practices were told to you. You said you crumbled. I can't remember. Did you made the main there? But
I did not even make the main in London. I
Brooke
crashed.
made the main. You crashed. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So
but
that was the
capable
whole
of winning,
interesting
so
thing
that
for me.
hurts, right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's no, that's the whole thing of the whole thing was like, I hadn't missed a final all year. And then you're at this Olympics, which is obviously the cream of the crop, but it's the smallest, biggest race. You know what I mean? Like as far as the
Yeah,
number
the
of people
field the
there, what's
field is
going
smaller,
on.
right? You only have two people
Yeah.
from a
And
country
so,
versus five. I get it. Yeah.
yeah. And I literally have to beat half the field to be in the final, which sounds easy, right? Because I haven't missed a final against a lot more people all year. And
Easier
then
said than done, right?
exactly. And then I think the other bit of this is, Ariel had a big accident, the day before we leave, and Brooke got thrown in as the alternate, and we got questioned at the press conferences, and obviously it rides from then me being kind of the underdog in the spotlight eye or press eye
Yeah.
because I wasn't the first pick, right? So I all of a sudden become the one instead of Ariel, and
Mm-hmm.
Brooke's coming in as the alternate underdog, no expectation, no anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the
Like that
story
whole
changed. The story
yeah,
literally changed. And so you literally, I mean, in a weird way, right? You get comfortable in that role. Like all the attention was on Ariel because she, air quote, qualified first. And so you're able to just kind of work and do your thing. And then all of a sudden you get there. Ariel gets in a horrific accident. She doesn't get to go. Now everyone's looking at you, right? You're the air quote girl, could be, would be golden girl. And
yeah.
so kind of throws a little chink in the armor, I would imagine.
Yeah, and like looking back, like gosh, I would have in my head, I probably would have been better off in Brooks' position, like just getting thrown in, not worried about what you're doing. Oh God, I have no, just no expectation, just going in doing whatever. But I think after, all those years of success, and like regardless of whatever's said leading into it, and knowing I'm a medal contender deep down,
Yeah, of course.
and then all the stuff leading into it with just feeling you deserve it after that a rough year. I mean, I got announced. I was leading the world or won my first World Cup 9 months essentially after that major knee injury.
Yeah.
So that's way under recovery time for everything, and just feeling like you deserve to do well.
Right.
Like there's no reason. But with all that said, life ain't fair. And it doesn't just go like that. You got to make it happen, like nothing's handed to anybody. And I think it just built up. I crumbled. I raced all right. I got third in my first round there of qualifying. And it was all right. Second round, my coach was, I mean, on top of it, the credentials and being there is your first time there. Coaching, I was working with someone outside of the program who was yelling at me from the top of the stands about what to do. And I'm trying to, just amidst the whole crowd, like there's no quiet time. There's no, I don't know, there's no calm in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just chaos.
Yeah.
And so he tells me, kind of yells I just need to be a little more aggressive and I'll be fine. And I was a little too aggressive where I didn't need to be. And the next one where I probably should have just been okay being in, I think I was in third again. I should have just hung there. But I got hit and like sideswiped on my front wheel and just kind of put my nose in there. And I ended up on the ground in the second round, which put me on the outside, which is the harder lanes to come from, in the third round where I needed to do well then to qualify. And I was just chasing down everybody in that round. I was in the back and trying to catch up. And it actually came down funny in the end to me and Brooke, the other American, where it was probably between us two on who would qualify. And I was chasing her down the last straight, and I had to just charge that straight to the finish line. I knew I did to get by her, and I hadn't really probably gone that fast at it, to be honest. And I clipped my wheel on one of the jumps a little bit and just went over the bars. And that's probably the only time I've been knocked out or not with it in my whole career.
Okay. So I'm going to be a psychologist right now.
Yeah.
Just so this is like totally coming, like I just getting chills. So I'm gonna just like buzzkill. I'm gonna just spoiler alert this whole thing right now. Sorry, but
yeah.
So like you have a thing, right? And you've been public about it or been vocal about it about how like you've led races and down the last straight for some reason or another.
I think that's where it started.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like literally, like like those times, like after London and before, we'll say literally like a few months ago when you just won the world championships, like that literally was like unresolved trauma. Like, like the last straight was like kind of a trigger. And it's so funny because, just so people know, BMX racers are notoriously bad at not practicing the last straight.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be tired by the time I get there anyway, blah, 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 blah. So by the time
every excuse to not do it, right?
Yeah. Right. And a lot of times the last straight's stupid. Even though it's
but not on these tracks.
No.
They up the ante on these ones.
They do. So anyways, I had to throw that in there because it's like, oh, now it all makes sense. Like why that was a thing. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that was it got a few people. That's actually where Brooke crashed in the time trials all by herself. A Latvian guy crashed all by himself. It was tricky.
Yeah, it was tricky.
And so when you get put under the cooker and you got to try to do something you hadn't done, it didn't go well.
No, and, I broke my back down a last straight. So there you go.
There you go. It happens to the best.
It happens to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right.
But so that was that. And
so
then
that
I
was
don't
a rough
honestly
one to
remember.
Get over. Yeah. So getting back into like the swing of things, I mean, so now gearing up for London, I mean, and we traveled because I did the whole series with everyone. I should say with everyone, but I was with everyone because it was kind of a traveling circus for pre Rio. It was different. Like I could see it. I think a lot of other people, but it was very different in how, I don't want to say how you were managing your races, but just, it seemed like your authority on everything. Like you were just kind of asserting more authority out there as a racer. It seemed like this next Olympic cycle. Like it was pretty much like, okay, there's this elite group who can get top 4, and that would be, you and Mariana and Brooke, and then, South American, and then a Dutch person, probably.
Caroline.
Yeah. So there's like this elite group of 6, right? 5 or 6. But it was very clear, like, you or Mariana, who had won London, right? So going into Rio.
Yeah, and that's the other bit of this whole thing is like I've raced with Mariana since we were little, and we have battled and battled and battled like every racetrack since we were, I raced her the first time actually in Sarasota, Florida when I was probably like 12 or 13, and we've been the same age growing up all along, and she was always a little bit more probably skilled on her bike growing up than I was. Jump in manual and doing all this stuff, but I was always stronger, faster, quicker starter. So we were just the opposites of each other.
But perfectly matched as far as a good rivalry from a competitive standpoint. Yep.
100%. So we'd been there, done that our whole career, and she'd gotten the better of me, I'll be honest, way more than I'd gotten the better of her probably. I was good on the American stuff. I'd get her quite often, but on that foreign stuff, she always seemed to excel. And I'd led tons of races against her and had her get around me, or I was the one that made the mistake and she'd go by me, And so I guess then you take London, she wins there with this, didn't even make the final heartbreak. And, deep down I'm like, I am her biggest competitor. We go head to head all the time, like, so deep down, like, I was there. I can do this,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the propelling factor moving forward, into 2016. You're competitive, like regardless of that result. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I knew I was competitive, and I knew I could do better than that. It just wasn't a good performance, right? I didn't showcase me. So, yeah, And I went through some personal stuff. Like 2013, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she passed away in 2014. And I broke my leg right after that. At just a stupid little thing. Ended up breaking my leg, having surgery on that same like knee area that I'd had previously. And I'd done like a little shoulder, like just a few little nagging injuries throughout 12 through 14, right? and then the personal life stuff. And so I guess like at one point in there, probably I would say in 2014, when I broke my leg after like a couple months after my mom had passed away, that's when I would say was a big turning point for me. Like I'd continually progressed as an athlete as I was living in California and riding year round and being competitive with all these girls that, you know, obviously are very talented all around the world. But I would say that was probably the turning point, because it was that moment when, you know, you're at rock bottom and you're like, why am I doing this, you know? And that's kind of when things turned around. Like I was like, I just decided to put everything into it, and, you know, the mindset just changed a little bit. Your priorities changes a little bit. You go changing stuff. And I think that's something that a lot of, you know, foreigners have it to their advantage too. They kind of, the rags to riches story, they have to put it all on the line. It's that or nothing, you know? And they have that, and they have that over a lot of American people, I would say.
Yeah, I think, you know, hearing you talk about that, and I, you know, and we were all like, when your mom passed, we were all gutted for you, and just like it hit everyone hard, and to watch you power through it and then see you become injured. Like, I think the way, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of like at that point it became bigger than yourself, like in a bigger way.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was not funny, haha, but I was at a funeral not too long ago. My cousin and his father had died, and it was, and my cousin didn't plan on speaking at the funeral, but then he decided to say something, and it was and it was a super powerful moment. I mean, not just like sentimental, but powerful, in like the energy of it was just like, okay, like I'm literally witnessing and seeing and feeling a torch being passed, right? Like from this point on, this man is essentially the patriarch of the family. You know what I mean? And so when hearing your story, like and you're just like, that was the turning point, your mom passing, and then, you know, breaking your leg after that. It was like, and so, yeah, because you showed up so differently, right? Like you were always successful, but you showed up so
I'd say I was a
differently.
lot more inconsistent prior to that. Like I was still good, but I think that was a turning point on the consistency in my career.
Like you just just grew the hell up, but not like, you know, like a stiff. I'm really, I don't mean any offense by it, like, but you really grew the hell up, but like in a very like, in every healthy way possible. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just, I don't know. You just get put in a corner and you're like, okay, you can either, like, it was literally one of those moments where, like, I remember because I was at home and Sam, my fiance now, I mean, he was racing and doing his thing still, and, you know, everybody's going to do their stuff, and I was spending more time at home alone with this broken leg. And I mean, before that, with riding was kind of the escape. Like I was just burying myself training and riding, and probably not really, you know, I don't want to say not accepting what had happened with my mom a few months prior, but just like, you
not
know,
necessarily addressing it. Yeah.
And just kind of trying to keep pushing. And so yeah, at that point it was kind of like I don't know, get in touch with yourself a little bit and figure, you know, emotionally. And I think that physically I've always been pretty good, but it was a big emotional or mental growth in that time.
Yeah.
You learn to prioritize things, and like you said, it just kind of became bigger than just about me. And I know, like my mom, one of the things that she said to me when she was, you know, very, very sick, she just said, I don't know. Well, actually, it was like the first thing she said to me when she got diagnosed. She's like, honestly, because I was like, you know, how bad is this? Whatever. And they said, oh, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be there to see London or Rio as much as I'd love to, you know? So I guess that kind of sat with me, that she would want me to do well and keep doing that and keep racing and keep doing all that stuff, you know? So I guess I just kind of, like you said, grew up a little bit, and I went into the Worlds that year. So again, I went back to the same doctor who did my surgery in 2014 on my leg and put some screws in my leg, I guess, up by my knee again, because we had thought it was my same knee was done, but it was actually just my leg broken. Just.
That's what I was laughing at. There's people here who don't ride, people listen who don't ride or whatever. They're like, did she say just my leg broken? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, a bone break is more simple from a carpentry standpoint than a ligament. Yes.
Exactly. So I went back to him because I thought he could put it back together, and he actually looked at everything and was told me, yeah, it's actually, to this, that, or the other thing, not this, and that all held up great. So you're good to go. Well, it should be you should come back here in maybe 12 weeks for a checkup, and then maybe in 16 weeks you can get back on your bike. And that's 4 months, right? Mm-hmm. And I was looked at him, and he's like, what? What are you going to throw at me? It's like, the World Championships are in exactly 12 weeks, and I'd like to race them. and
What's 2 weeks? What's 4 weeks?
And I mean, that's not just like, hey, I want to get back on my bike, and hey, I want to be able to be on my bike and get ready to race, right? In less than 12 weeks. And he just looked at me and was just like, oh, okay. He's like, I shouldn't have cleared you until probably, I was like, you let me go in 5 months with my knee and everything was fine. He's like, yeah, and that was probably a little risky, but it was for the Olympics, so I cleared you. But thank God it worked out. And he's like, all right, come back in 9 weeks, he told me, or 6 weeks, whatever it was, and we'll have a checkup. So he cleared me to start. I started walking again off my crutches at 6 weeks, and then so I was walking around, and then I was only able to start doing anything like ride around or like physical, really, besides walk at about 9 weeks. So that gave me like 3 weeks until we were like on the gate at the Worlds. So essentially what I'm getting at is it was kind of that thing, like, say I said I probably would have rather been in Brooks shoes going into London where there's no expectation or no, like, you just kind of get thrown in the mix, right? Mm-hmm. I was coming in completely under the radar to the Worlds, and that I didn't know what to expect. I just went there and thought, I'm going to give this my best and see how I go, mm-hmm. And I got better every lap. Like, I didn't time trial well. I almost died in practice. Like, it was a tight little indoor track. It wasn't probably the ideal spot to do it, but it ended up working out, and I just went through every lap and got better and better, and ended up second behind Mariana, who had, like you said, won gold in London. I ended up getting second to her at that race. So soon after all that injury and all this stuff happened. And that was kind of like this moment where I was like, hey, if I can get through that, what's there to worry about here? I got to stress less on this stuff, right? I got to just enjoy these moments, train hard, work hard, be ready. But, just kind of the mindset changes, right? You kind of realize what your mind is capable of. So, and in that time, I'd actually, when I was in rehab in San Diego for that knee injury, the other part of this puzzle is that I had met a sports psychologist that was also like a, what do you call it, brainwave reader. I don't know what to call them. But
neurofeedback.
Yeah, neurofeedback stuff. Yep. And so I started working closely with her and just entering kind of that side of my game.
Nice.
And it made a huge difference right off the bat.
Love it.
And so I've stuck strong with that, and I think just only improved those skills and been consistent, for the most part since. And kind of, I don't want to say I'm stress-free. I still care so much and work so hard to do well. I know all these girls are great, but just the mindset of it's different, Like, it's just more put the work in and be ready and, just listen to your gut and go with things, because, you're capable of a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
I when I work with people, that's a big thing. It's like, it doesn't sound sexy, but trust. Trust is one of my favorite words. That, love, another favorite word. But a lot of those things boil down to just, kind of like a core sense of self. When you're out there, because right, you're not stress free. It's just your ability to handle whatever's thrown at you, right? And sometimes it takes being rigid, and sometimes it takes being nimble, and sometimes you're not going to be the fastest down the first straight, but just being able to kind of roll with it and still plod along, so to speak. And that's as a psychologist working with athletes, it's fun to see, on the outside, to kind of watch people run around with their, like chickens with their head cut off at some time, and then watch other people, see how calm they are before or after an event, and kind of, and I love, especially now that there's social media, I like spotting the people who, you can see when their game's on at an event versus not, so to speak. So it's kind of, all of that stuff is fun. So, but it was very clear, and you don't need to be a sports psychologist to figure it out, but it was very clear that, your approach and going into Rio, you showed up a lot differently and more, more.
Yeah, I think I felt I had like less, kind of that change in mind of feeling like I had everything to lose and all this stuff to prove to me or whoever, because I, had all to, in my mind, or whoever around me, like the pressure that I needed to live up to my potential, right? After all these years. And I think that going into Rio is less of that and more of just like working with my tools, accepting the challenge of the people around me that I was competing against, and just, I guess, like stepping up and just taking it as an opportunity to be better rather than, fearing doing wrong.
Right. Yeah, and what I'm hearing is really, right, you took control. You were applying the pressure, like really accepting the responsibility. It's fun. I did a podcast with your fiance, Sam, and the title of that is Responsibility to Expectations. And that's the one thing that I picked up from him, was like, he just like had super high standards. And so there was never really like like too many external forces pressuring him. His pressure was all like based on what he felt he was capable of, what he believed he was capable of.
Yeah, and it's so hard. It can be, people that are good at what they do, I think most of the pressure is always from yourself, because other people never expect of you what you expect of yourself.
Right.
And I think it can be great, but it can be destructive as well.
It can be, right? But in a high performance situation, I say, like, instead of feeling the pressure, apply the pressure. And that's what I'm hearing you did. It's like, okay, like not that you didn't stop to smell the roses or didn't enjoy it, but you definitely were like, okay, this is the truth of this situation. This is what I want out of this situation, and I'm willing to rise to that occasion. And it was really just like that simple.
It kind of went from more of a like in Rio, I definitely, and I mean, still to this day, like I 100%, I got my silver medal, I earned that silver medal. Do I think that I was a contender for gold? Yeah, I think that there was things I could have done differently on the day that would have set me up better to have a better run with Mariana in the final for a gold medal. But at the end of the day, she rode a perfect day. I had little mistakes here and there that, I rode really well. I would say probably one of the best races I've ever done personally. But, she never slipped up, and I earned my silver, and I'm proud of it. And I've still got that fire that, I know I could be up on that top step next time, like it's there.
Yes.
But it's I earned it. I earned my silver, and it was a good race day. Everybody rode clean. It was a good lap, and it was good. So I'm proud of it.
Brings us up to this, I don't want to say this last chapter, but this last most recent big event, which was the World Championships on USA soil, first time, I believe, since 2001. So, yeah.
It was the first, first time on U.S. soil since 2001, and first time an American has, for the women, won since 97, which is crazy.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's 20 years?
Yeah.
It was a 20-year dry spell? Oh, my gosh. Congratulations again.
For the men, I think it was like 8 years or something.
Yeah, we're back on the map. Yeah. Well, that's good. So for those who don't know, I was doing the commentating for the broadcast, so I saw most of the race in a little announcer's booth on a screen. But I got to tell you, when you won, like, and then, because the camera's following you around and I'm announcing and, kind of giving a play-by-play of what's going on, but I know the backstory of all of everything with Sam and your mom. And so I know how much this means, right? Like, we've all, if you're in our community, we've done a lot of miles together, literally on the road. So I'm like choking up. Like, I literally like pushed the microphone away and just backed my seat up and let Trace do the talking, because like I couldn't stand it. Like, I was just like beside myself. Like, I that was probably the first time I've been that touched from a BMX race, right? Announcing. I wasn't working with any athletes there, so I had no horses in the race. Like, I literally was just like, I was overwhelmed as much as the crowd was, and I thought it was like, and the part that brought the house down was when, so you cross the line, you go do like a mini victory lap down the last straightaway, then you go, and then everybody in that final comes and greets you and gives you a hug at the finish line. That, and then you went and rode out. It's like, anyways, so how was capping that off, right? Like putting that nail in that coffin for that. I mean, because you didn't have much of a year this year. You didn't race that much this year because after Sam's accident, there was a lot to take care of, and sponsorship was kind of, up in the air.
Yeah.
So it
was kind of one of those things again, Jason. It was like, backed in a corner again. Like, it was like, everything, when it rains, it pours, right? And like, so we finished the Olympics, 2 weeks later, Sam has this horrific accident, and life changes real quick on what your priorities are. Mm-hmm. I end up being able to kind of work out the Grands last year and have a successful race there against all those same people that were at the Olympics, and race well, win that stuff with very minimal prep. But, you kind of like deep down, I know that my Olympic preparations were still like kind of, I didn't lose that, right? Mm-hmm. I was ready physically. But then you take another few months off, you focus on life outside of it, you lose your sponsors because of whatever reason, even after you'd had your most successful year to date in 2016. And it's kind of like, well, cool. What a great pat on the back, right? Like, that was fun. I didn't really live that moment, I would say, with that medal for a long time. Like, I just really did. It was short lived, the happiness of that, because, and I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's just, that's what it was. Life changed real quick. Mm-hmm. And, so then you come into this year, I didn't start training really till very late, probably, but I was just focused on other stuff and helping Sam and getting life in order back home, because if there's anything I learned in that, process, like I talked about in 2014, it's just kind of like, play the hand you're dealt, and, like I said, you're kind of capable of amazing things with your mind, right? Mm-hmm. If you can just back yourself, trust yourself, all that stuff. And so it never left my mind. And, ever since this Worlds has been announced to be in Rock Hill years ago, it's always been, kind of this pinnacle thing, because I'd never won a world championship. This is my first elite world title, and I've been a contender for every year. You'd come close. Yeah. I've led it multiple times and not won, and had multiple podiums, and, I've been the one that was right there. Like, I've made every final. I've done it, gotten multiple, like I said, podiums and almost wins. So it was just one of those things. It was like this weight on my shoulders, right? So it's been like kind of in the back of my head about this Rock Hill one, about how cool, it would be to do well here, right? Home soil, all this stuff. So that never really left, my mind, even in the beginning of the year and all that stuff. Like the race that I wanted to do well at was, I finally prioritized and said, I want to do well at the Worlds, right? Like, I want to do that, and I'm going to put my eggs in that, and I'm definitely still going to race and get ready and do all this stuff at the beginning of the year. But man, my motivation was lacking a little bit, and I was kind of trying to force, like, in those first couple races of the year, I was trying to force like what I'd been doing year after year, right? Mm-hmm, like, mm-hmm. I'm always excited, go to the opener of the year, go to this, like, I race everything. I loved racing, right? And it was different. Like, I didn't have my sponsors, my team set up. I didn't have Sam with me at the races or any of those team people. I'm going as a rental car pro, like, as the first time without this professional setup. Like, just the whole demeanor of the events were different, not even just the racing, aside from being, physically not very prepared. And so they didn't go well. I crashed really hard at the beginning of the year a couple times, and just kind of, I went to multiple events and raced one day because I crashed out and whatever. But never was that far off the mark physically, right? I just knew I was mentally not there. And so then March kind of rolls around. I knew Rock Hill, we had our national championship race and a race there earlier in the year. I was like, all right, I'm going to start getting ready for that race, right? This is, early March. Going to be there, going to book my ticket. I'm not going to decide to go the day before the race. I'm going to be ready to go, race, do all this stuff, right? And so race that, go through the year, start picking up kind of as the year goes on. Start winning some races, training more consistently, and just kind of like I said, those first few races maybe didn't go so well, and I didn't go to the World Cups because of stuff going on at home, and that was a big fear of mine was, oh my gosh, if I'm not racing, am I going to be ready to just jump in? But then I look back on my 2014 Worlds thing. I didn't race any of those things. I show up to the Worlds and have my best race. Like I said, you kind of using these experiences, right? Mm-hmm. Like all these things are adding up. Like I'm okay. I will be okay. And I know Jamie Staff with USA Cycling was really supportive of me, and he said, "Alise, you're a veteran." Like, and it's kind of hard. Like I don't feel like a veteran, but I am. And now, how many years
you turned pro at 15. How old are you now?
26. Yeah, so we're 11.
Your 11th year as a pro, even though you're still young.
Yeah, so, he kind of just reminded me, like, you've done this, you've done that, like, you're going to show up ready. You love this competition. He backed me 100% and said, you'll be ready to go. I know you will. And the whole USA Cycling crew said the same thing. They really supported that, which obviously instilled confidence in me and not maybe attending everything for the year. And obviously then my coaching situation changed, and, with no issues or anything. I was always with Sean Dwight since the beginning of my career, really. But, he's in Australia. All this stuff happens. I'm prepping for the Grands last year, and there's no use in getting a training program or doing anything with anybody that's not there, because I'm sleeping in a hospital and in the cold of Denver and just fitting stuff in when I can. Like there's no plan hardly. It's fitted in how you can. And Sam just kind of started helping me out with some stuff. And so he kind of took that role for me this year because he's here. And it was kind of like this super team effort, like I help him with his stuff. He helps me with my stuff. And it was special in that way of a preparation, right? And we get to the race, and those races leading into it, I felt like I was in good shape. But again, I hadn't raced all these international folks, and I'd seen some hefty battles around, at some of those World Cups and stuff. And, I knew I was going to have my work cut out for me. I never went in thinking, oh, I've got this, but I never really thought about like winning the race, but it never even crossed my mind that I'd lose that race either. So it was kind of this good spot where I was like in the moment, and I was just going lap by lap, taking things in stride. And the race was amazing in that regard. Like I almost got pushed out in my semi, which I kind of just forced my way back in. The girl tried to push me kind of into the men's part of the track, which would have put me out of the final. And, I kind of willed my way back into that one, won that lap, but it was like way slower than the other semifinal had been. So that puts you further to the outside in the final, like in the lane choices, which makes it harder, obviously, to lead the race to the first corner. But I just kind of was there. Sam said to me, I thought all those things, blah, 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 why not now? I'm ready. I'm going the fastest I've ever been. I'm good. Just give it all you got. There's nothing to lose, kind of a thing. And it worked out. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like nothing was perfect about it, but it was good. It was enough. And I think that's the thing. I'm such a perfectionist in things. I can sit there and pick apart. This was wrong. That was wrong. I can dwell on things too long, but that whole day, everything was just kind of clicking. Like it wasn't perfect, but I wasn't letting anything bother me, Mm-hmm. And so it worked out well. I got to the last straight, as we talked about, and it was like, I'm leading this race and I'm finishing, right? Like yes, it crossed my mind. I'd be lying if I said like the nerves didn't kick in a little bit. I cased
Right.
the jump a little bit, didn't quite have a perfect last straight, but I didn't blow my clip of my pedal out and blow a foot or anything like that. It wasn't perfect, but I knew I was just going to have to gas it to the finish line, right? And then the Australian Caroline comes up, and we were in a photo finish by the end of it. So I'm looking up, like making sure. I thought I had it, but I wasn't. You can't be too certain. I wasn't going to be that person to celebrate before I knew. And then they announced that I'd got it, and it was just like this sheer, like almost relief, like joy, but
Yeah.
relief, like after how many years of being so close. And like I remember going up the straight, throwing it. I just went straight to Sam, up on the hill. So to share that moment this year on home soil, given the situation that he wasn't racing and all of those things, we'd done this as a team effort. Like just sharing that moment was so special and so cool. And I didn't think about how it felt to everybody else at the time. I just knew I needed to go tell
Yeah,
him.
of course. We loved it. We loved watching it. I can tell you, like it was.
Yeah.
It was so fun to watch. It really was.
I was going down after the UCI guy official kind of tapped me after a little bit and said, all right, hey, we need you at the finish line for an interview. Because Sam was up on the other starting hill, because there's two of them
Right.
watching, so he had a good vantage point. So I barely even got up there. Like my legs were so jello.
Right.
I was like,
so this is the fun. So this is the funny stuff, right? So when you win, so just so people know, so when you win a world championship event or you're at an international race, when you cross the finish line, you're assigned a chaperone to follow you around so they could do the drug testing. And then two, yeah, when you win, they do expect you to maybe do a quick lap, but then yes, the press and then the finish line interview. So that's the funny part is like
I ride through the gravel and straight up to the other side of the track.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got some chaperone like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Because a chaperone's usually like kind of a volunteer with like who's kind of official. So they're like trying to like follow you around. Then you have like the press. They don't have not all the press have the right credentials to go where you're riding, and you know what I mean. So it's just so fun. Nobody cared though because it was so awesome. But it's just funny to think about the logistics of it.
Oh yeah, the photo that's circulating. I think one of the main ones is someone's iPhone photo that was just standing there.
Yeah.
Like it was it's crazy. And it was cool though. Like it was so special, and obviously it was amazing that with the home crowd and it felt like everybody was on, our team, not just me, like our team. Like you said, it's like riding for more than yourself, and it just becomes so special. And so that happens, and then I give him a hug. They kind of give me a tap and say, we need you at the finish line. So I'm like, okay. And I'd already struggled to get up the hill. I'm like, okay, don't, face plant going through this gravel with these jello legs and all this stuff, riding back over to the finish line in front of everybody. So I end up riding around like the actual track kind of to get back over there. And I'm thinking in my head, gosh, the elite men they're waiting race. I'm like, they're hating me right now. I need to finish this up. Right?
I think actually you probably made it easier for them to wait for their race.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
Well, I'll have to have someone on from, but it, like I said,
I think Sylvain Andre told me he was tearing up behind the hill before his race.
I'm telling you, I was touched. Like it was a lot to take in a good way. And
but then to top it off, like you said, I get to the last straight, and I'm kind of doing finally, like, because with Sam and going up there right away, that was just me and him. Like it wasn't for anybody else. Like right. It was just like I needed to see him. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll do my little victory lap here, say thank you to all these people that are out here cheering for us and whatever else. And then I get to the last straight, and all the girls that I just raced and competed so hard against all day and my whole life, really, they're waiting there, and just giving me this big group hug. And like to get this show of sportsmanship from your competitors is just special, like they're almost like, it's like they're not mad to lose to you. It's like you really feel like you deserved it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like everyone can get so caught up in, trying to win this, that, the other thing. But like, it was just really cool to, I guess, experience that and share that with all these talented girls that are just like, all this competition aside, like congrats,
Yeah, well, there's
You know?
something. I wish I could quantify it. I wish there was some way to measure it, but in my heart, in my mind, I believe there is an energy that kind of connects everybody and to this world and to each other. And I think, like, not many people get it, but you sure as hell did. But people, they believed your belief. Whatever that was, like, and you just can't deny that, right? Like, that's as sweet as it gets. And honestly, like, as that's why we watch sports. You might have your favorite team, your favorite rider, your favorite whatever, but really, like, there's people, right, crossing the finish line. There's people carrying the ball. There's people making the basket, and that was about as human as it got. So so that was just
I just really felt connected.
And it was just
it was cool.
So let's I'd ride that one out. And by the way, so the number one rider award vote thing came out, and I have no problem saying this, but I voted for you. Like, that email came across my desk, I voted for you like that. And that was hard. Yeah, so it was like too easy to do. I was like, oh, Alise Post, done. Like, just send it off. Like, didn't even think about it before so just FYI.
Thank you. And on that note, actually, it's been super cool. Like, and I don't know if a girl's ever won the Nora Cup, that number one racer award, or not. But even throughout my career now, I won that Rookie Pro of the Year award, as well as the Pro of the Year award, which I think I'm the only girl that's ever been voted into these things. And
so let's make it a trifecta.
I know, but it's just that's what I mean. It's so special to share in those things with people. Like, it's really cool to feel like you're touching people and they're connected to your story. And that's what makes that special, crossing the line, feeling like the whole world's on your team and supporting what you're doing, regardless if they're, trying to beat you or not, they're on your team in a way. So awesome. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So, man, I could talk BMX and racing and mindset with you all day. So check it out. I have some questions. We're not going to do it lightning round, but we're gonna try to breeze through them. But you take as long as you need. So what is next? Like, I think 2020 is on the horizon. I hear Japan. There's one more podium spot to be had from an Olympic standpoint. But in the bigger scheme of things, right? Alise Post. Are we gonna go back to school? Are we gonna start a foundation? Are we gonna start a business? All of the above. Where do you see this going? BMX thing, the life thing, business?
First things first, I'm getting married with
That's
Sam.
Right.
Yeah, at the end of this year. So that's where I've been filling my time outside of the racing and training this year. That's a
job in and of itself, planning a wedding.
Exactly. So we're focused on that and his rehab and that sort of stuff right now this year. I've signed a lot of contracts and stuff to go through 2020, as you said. So I guess that's on the agenda. Keep racing, doing all that. But I definitely do want to think about what's next. And, my stuff is, I don't know if I'll be back in school, next year or the year. I honestly haven't thought that far past December when I'm getting married, because we're like just so focused on the rehab and that right now. But, maybe next year I'll start dabbling in classes again. I did some of that a couple of years ago, too, where I just took some part-time stuff. But I don't see me doing full-time until I'm, like, ready to do full-time. You know what I mean? Because I want to I want to do PT school pretty bad. Like, I think that's what I want to do. Oh, cool. And you have to take all those classes within a certain amount of time to apply to the PT school and all that stuff. Blah, blah, blah.
Those windows, yep.
So I think until I'm ready to do it like 100% full time, I'm not going to go back full time to school, because otherwise I'll just be retaking classes for no reason. Mm-hmm. But definitely keep the mind growing, I guess. And then in the interim, I guess, keeping my eyes open for any other opportunities as well, because I've always been interested in journalism and broadcasting, that kind of stuff as well. And obviously with Sam kind of taking on this coaching role, maybe that's a avenue we explore together for the future, whether it's maybe in the PT and sideline stuff and him being a coach. I don't know, but we'll see.
It could be crazier. It could be like you're a psychologist that works with athletes and then ends up announcing at the BMX races. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well,
who
I
knows?
see, but see, there's already been a precedent set, and I got to tell you, they were looking for a woman to announce with me. They have been. So there you go.
Hmm.
So
So maybe one of these times. I don't know
one of
how
these.
good I'd be in that booth. I could try, but
Well, you threw it out there. You said journalism. I know, but anyways, I
I
think it'd be pretty
know.
easy for you to talk about people on bikes going fast over dirt jumps. But
Yeah,
all
exactly.
right,
No, I'll keep my eyes open.
yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool, and I love that you said contracts plural through 2020, multiple years. I love that. I love that so much. Obviously, as a BMX former BMX professional BMX racer myself, to hear that you're out there and people are paying you to ride that bicycle and be a great representative and ambassador for the sport. So it's
Yeah, it
good.
was tough this year, like coming off of losing all those sponsors, but obviously having a successful year in Rio and medal, and then this, as that was actually my very first race on my new bike brand, the Worlds, and I ended up winning. So they were pretty happy with that.
So interestingly enough, it's the same bike brand that Mariana Pajón rides. She got a gold one. You had a silver one. So now is it like going to be two? What are they going to do as far as?
She was laughing. She's like, "Do you want to trade for the photo?"
That's so funny. That's so funny. Oh, that's
good.
great. So
But,
last question. What is one thing you wish every human being... let me start over. What's one thing you wish every human knew?
That's a very filled question.
Well, we go deep here in the gold medal mindset.
Well, I think I kind of touched on it already in that, I think life isn't fair and you have to take what you want you have to be very motivated in those things. You're never just going to be handed things. And I just think that, lack of a better thing, you can have all the tools and all this stuff in your box, but you have to sharpen them, use them, and make the project. You have to take what's yours essentially, and work for it. You're never going to be handed things. And on top of that, I think that stress is the number one cause of every bad thing in life that happens to people. Mm-hmm. And learning how to manage that stuff, and I guess just tap into your inner self a little bit more and being happy and positive and those types of things, and just taking things as they come. I just think that there's so much merit to all that type of stuff. And
all that psychological gobbledygook.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of merit to all of it, but I think the biggest thing is I think a lot of people are, the older I get, the more I see it, I guess, that people feel entitled to things. And I know in the past I've probably felt entitled to things. And
we all have.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It's just not how life works. And bad things do happen to good people and all this stuff. And you just have to roll with the punches and make the best of your situation.
Well, damn, that was a grown-up ass answer. It's not given. It's earned.
Exactly. And cookie dough is the best dessert ever.
Okay.
Hands.
So you see, that was so okay. Real quick story. So I never really got to spend much time with you, except for you made me a nice cup of coffee at a race, in Phoenix or something, which was good. And I was like, wow, she's really motherly. It's kind of endearing. And then we were driving from Argentina. We had that ridiculous car ride to that airport.
Uh-huh.
Remember that? So,
yep.
So anyway, so I always tell people about that story because there was this mule and then this kid on a scooter. Remember there was this family of four and then this kid on a gas tank of a scooter.
Yeah.
And he was looking at us and he's eating a lollipop and winks and it's what? Anyways, so but people that's pretty fun. But that is the one thing I do think is very endearing about you is you do have that down home, very American, humble, Midwest thing. So the cookie dough thing is that's the perfect cap.
You will find me at the store buying the pre-baked cookie packets that I can break off in squares. That's the first thing I went to after the Worlds, after the Olympic. That's the go-to.
That's funny.
But they do make the eat it, don't bake it kind now too.
Oh,
so
all right. I wouldn't know.
There you go.
I'm not in the market.
Yeah,
but
so you don't have to have the raw eggs.
All right.
So
There you go. Well, all right. Is there anybody you'd like to thank as we sign out? And where can people find you, support you, all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, big thank you to you for having me on the show, and just everybody who's listening and taken to our story here. But yeah, obviously all the sponsors that continue to back me. You can obviously find those online. I don't need to rattle them off to you guys, but they're the ones who keep the show going and me where I need to be. And then Sam, my fiance, for inspiring me, motivating me, and just being there, and all the his family, friends, everybody who's kind of kept the wheels of the machine turning over this past rough patch of a year. And yeah, I just look forward to everything that's up and coming. I think the best is yet to come, and thank you guys for having me on the show. And you can follow up with any of the updates on my end. Obviously, social media stuff. I'm bigger on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook kind of scene at Alise Post 11. And obviously, you can keep up with Sam's cause and everything he's doing, and all the fundraising and donations, etc. for obviously supporting our journey as we move forward in life on the strengthfor91.com. And yeah, you'll know everything you need to know about us if you keep up on those spots.
Cool. Well, we're keeping up, and actually like hoping to keep up, because you guys really do set the bar pretty high. And yeah, I really enjoyed this podcast. Went a little longer than I expected, and I just didn't care. Like, it was, I'm glad it did. So excited for people to hear this. And Alise, as always, you are a champ. We're all proud of you, and thank you for being on the show. And I'm sure I will see you very soon, or race
near you.
Yeah, near us.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Jason, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for taking the time to mine for gold on the Gold Medal Mindset podcast. Let's keep the conversation going on Twitter at RealDrJRich, or on the web at drjasonrichardson.com. That's drjasonrichardson.com. Take care and have a great day. Gold Medal Mindset is brought to you courtesy of IPD Seminars. Make an impact, live with purpose, and fulfill your destiny. Learn the mindset and best practices to crush any limit. Visit ipdseminars.com for more information.